What you're hearing is Hardie Fiber Cement Siding living up to its reputation as the siding that helps resist weather damage, no matter what Mother Nature throws its way. James Hardie knows how important a reputation is, especially when you're a home builder. That's why Hardie products withstand the elements better than wood-based siding, with styles to match their strength. Because when home builders work with us, we deliver our best so they can look their best. Protect your reputation with exterior products by James Hardie.
Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor. Oh, what a win last night. Oh my gosh. First shootout of the season for the Predators. Yeah, not that many. I think for Chicago, I think that's their fifth extra time game too. I hate it when I just sit down here and I think of something to say and I don't have the data behind me to back that up. That's really unfair to me. Yes, that's their fifth extra time, their second shootout. They won the first one. The Predators, it's their first shootout. Was it 9 overtime games coming in tonight? Definitely 7 losses. One, I had that overtime win with LA, and then 2 overtime wins. So you think the 10th extra time game for the Preds last night, resulting in a 3-2 win. Interesting. I tried to figure out who got the winning goal, but I guess there is nobody gets credited with the winning goals in shootouts. The team gets the win; they get 2 points. The team gets credit for a goal, but no players do. I guess that's fair. Like last night, the Preds scored 3 times, and Chicago only did twice. So, all 3 of those guys getting goals would be a little weird and bad for the goaltender and their stats, and both on both sides. But so anyway, big win. Good. We needed to win. We needed to beat Chicago. Whether they got the point or not is kind of irrelevant. We need points. Irrelevant for Nashville. Not really worried about Chicago overtaking us. If they do, fine. If they do, I think there's definitely no way to make the playoffs. But it's hard to believe that Nashville could be playing well enough to make the playoffs, and Chicago could overtake them along that way. They would have to, I guess, because they would be fighting for that last position, given where they're at now. Anyhow, so the postseason watch, I haven't changed the notes on my the title in my notes yet, but I guess I should. So we're 44 games in, 40 games left. We've got 35 points, so 58. 58 points needed with 40 games to get them. So that's it's not the worst situation. I'm sorry, 37 points. I did not update that part of my notes. 37 points with so 56 needed with 40 games left. I updated the number of games left, but not the points. I guess because I did some of that yesterday before the game. So 56 points left with 40 games to go. So that's 28 games to win, gives 12 games of leeway, which does not feel very comfortable, but it's not undoable. They're since the 8-game losing streak that ended on December 12th, the Preds are 8-6-1, 8 wins. They have 15 overall, so this is the best stretch of the season and good timing. Nothing Nothing interesting on the unrestricted free agent watch. Okay, so let's just get into it. Tomorrow night, this is Friday the 17th, tomorrow night on the 18th of January, Minnesota comes to town. The Minnesota Wild will be here. The Preds, it will be their fourth game of a 5-game homestand. They're currently 2-1. The fifth game will be Tuesday against San Jose. You can play a lot of golf in San Jose. That was our theme song for them. You can play a lot. There's a lot of golf in San Jose. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, one year when the Kings were in the playoffs, we came up with songs to sing for the other teams and special meals. I don't remember what I made for the Sharks. I do remember when we played the Ducks, we would have duck with Anaheim chilies. And that series went to 7, and I think I broke out the duck liver for Game 7. But the Kings did win in 7, and so one of those things. Once you start, you kind of have to keep up with. So we, 7 games of duck was a little bit quacky for me. But hey, they beat the Ducks. That was great. Anyway, but this is the Ducks and the Kings. Neither of those teams are playing in Nashville tomorrow night. So let's get back to the show. All right, so tomorrow night will be the third game of 3, the last against Minnesota, thank goodness. We've lost the other 2 games. Both of those were in Minnesota, 2-3 loss in overtime and a 3-5 loss. So we will not have to play them again until the playoffs or next year. But playoffs. Being that, I guess right now you'd have to say that Winnipeg is in the driver's seat to win the Central, and then Vegas to win. Vegas and Edmonton are tied right now. So Vegas or Edmonton. The Jets are 4 points ahead of them with a couple games in hand. If the Preds got in, probably the second wild card team, so they would probably play Winnipeg. So they would for the Preds to get to play the Wild again. Either the Wild would have to wind up winning the Central Division and the Western Conference, basically, or the Preds would have to make the playoffs and make it at least to the second round. Wow, that was a long way to go just to back up that we really don't have to play the Wild again. Gosh, some days. Anyway, yeah. So Minnesota is 27-14-4. On the road, they are 16-4-3. They are second in the Central right now with 58 points, 7 points behind Winnipeg, who's played 1 more, and 1 point ahead of Dallas, who's played 1 less. So that second place is kind of up to grabs. We're just over halfway in the season, so who knows how this is going to shake out. But that's just where they're at right now. Minnesota is 5th in the league, 3 points behind Edmonton. They're tied with Toronto, who's played 1 more game, and with New Jersey, who has played 2 more. Emphasizing that this last stretch of games for Nashville has been pretty tough. You got to play Minnesota, playing Minnesota tomorrow night. And that's the schedule. Okay, so then For the Wild, this is the first of 2 games on the road. They will follow the Preds up Saturday with Colorado on Monday. And then they play 2 at home, Utah and Calgary. Before coming to Nashville, they played a 1-game homestand, which they lost to Edmonton. They are on a 2-game losing streak after alternating win and a loss, and then they had won 4 straight before that. That 4 straight started with the last time they played Nashville, that 5-3 beating of Nashville, which included the match penalty for Leroux. So it'd be interesting to see if Leroux is in the lineup tomorrow night. I don't think he will be happy either way. I think if he plays, it's going to be ugly. I would prefer him to be a healthy scratch and just avoid the drama. I think that would be best. But yeah, when it comes to fighting and stuff like that, most hockey aficionados seem to have a different opinion than I do. I do not like fighting in hockey. I don't get the point, especially when there was a fight last night. Just all of a sudden, boom, fight. I just don't see the point. Sometimes I get it. When somebody takes a run at somebody and like Leroux. Did something that severely injures somebody, that's one thing. Just because they call you, they make a fat joke about your mother, I don't see the point. But hey, there's less of it, and I think that's a good thing. But anyway, yeah. So that 4-game winning streak started with the win over Nashville, and in their last 10. Minnesota is 6-4. 6-4 in their last 10. Personnel changes. They kind of have the injury bug right now. And I'm not exactly sure how to interpret this because it looks like a lot of these are expected to be back for tomorrow night, even though, like Kaprizov was moved to long-term injured reserve, but he's still supposed to be back for Saturday night. So if he's just been moved to long-term injured reserve, how would he be back? I think that was just, a day or two ago after the Edmonton game. But anyway, that's the stats that I have. So that's what I'm going with. So like the first 5 people, 3 people went out on the 16th of January, one on the 15th and one on the 13th. I get 6 + 1 people on injured reserve. One of them has been on injured reserve for the longest time. So not worth mentioning, one of their goaltenders, they played 2 games, I think, and it's been on injured reserve since then. So not recent, and definitely no notable stats. Lots of no notable stats, but so we'll just run through this real quick. Number 7, defenseman Brock Faber is out, but he's expected to be back. He's first in time on ice. And then second in time on ice, also out, but expected to be back tomorrow night, is number 25 defenseman Jonas Broden. So Faber and Broden, the top 2 time on ice guys, are out, but expected to be back for the game against Nashville. Then we get into, another defenseman, number 46, Jard Spurgeon, the one injured by Leroux. He is expected to be back. He's 4th in time on ice. So 3 of the top 4 defensemen have been out for Minnesota. That might be why they're not playing quite as well as you'd expect, but, got to play the games. So that's the defenseman. And then the number 97, left wing Kirill Kaprizov, is the long-term injured reserve. He's expected to be back for the game too. He's first in everything. There's no room for anybody else because he's got the most goals, assists, points, shots. No, not the most shots. Second in shots. Okay, so he's got the most goals, assists, and points, 23, 27, and 50. He's third in time on ice, which makes him the highest forward. And then he's second on shots with 120 and second in shooting percentage with 19%. And that's kind of a scary stat. Second in shots and 19% shooting percentage. Whoa. So 23 goals on 120 shots. And then you've got number 94, and he's supposed to be back. Number 94, center Jakub Lauko. He just moved off long-term injured reserve, also supposed to be back for the game. No notable stats for him. Not going to be back. Number 90, left wing Marcus Johansson is out. No notable stats. So, 3 defensemen, 3 forwards currently out, and a goaltender. The injury bug really seems to be going around Minnesota. And I don't like seeing people injured. I don't mind not seeing Kaprizov in the game, but they beat us without him the other night. So maybe it'd be better if he's back. Get your best guys back. Come on. Hard to do that. And another boring type. Iowa Wild. I mean, Jiminy Cricket. That's their AHL team. The Wild did recall 2 players. Number 21 center Brendan Gaunce, and number 28 left wing Liam Ogren from the Iowa Wild. The Minnesota Wild's minor league team is the Iowa Wild. I mean, both states, both Wild, Jiminy Cricket. Boring. Anyway, so who to watch for? Pretty tight here. That can't be right. Oh, yeah, Brock Faber. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the forwards to look out for, again, number 97, left wing Kirill Kaprizov. Went through his stats first in goals, assists, points, plus minus as well, first in plus minus with 21. 50 points and plus minus of 21. Anyway, number 23, center Marco Rossi, and number 12, left wing Matt Boldy, both tied for second in goals, assists, and points, 17, 22, and 39. Rossi, 23 Rossi, is also third in plus minus with 15, but Matt Boldy is 10th with 3, so that's where they diverge. Boldy is also fourth in time on ice, first in shots with 55, and another stat, first in shooting percentage at 20%, 17 goals on 85 shots. So, when Boldy and Kaprizov shoot, I think if I remember when I looked up last time, they don't play on the same line together. I do think they do play in the power play together. But Boldy is also second in penalty minutes with 33. So finding stats everywhere. So Boldy, number 12, and Kaprizov, number 97, probably the two most dangerous people on the ice. And then first in time on ice, defenseman Brock Faber, number 7, like I said, supposed to be back for the game tomorrow night. That's your Minnesota Wild. For the Nashville Predators, they are now 15, 22-7, 10, 8-3 at home, 10, a double-digit number in the win column for home. They are still 7th in the Central Division with 37 points. I got the notes right on this part of the script. 6 points ahead of Chicago, who has played one more game. They are 6 points behind Utah now, even on games played. So look out, Utah. We're coming for you. Coming for you. It is the 4th game of a 5-game homestand. They're 2-1. And in the last 10, they're 5-5. Notable personnel changes. Nothing has changed there. Evangelista, Wilsby, Lausanne, and Smith are all, Evangelista is listed as out. The rest are injured reserve. Lausanne, I guess, is expected to be back for tomorrow night's game, but the rest of them not. Wilsby is 4th in time on ice. Wilsby is also Wilsby and Evangelista are also restricted free agents at the end of the year. Not that that matters for their injuries, but just keeping an eye on that kind of thing. Lausanne is 2nd in penalty minutes. I think that's still correct. Had a little bit of a couple of penalties the other night. Didn't have. McCarron is still 1st with 46. Lausanne 37. Then LaRue at 32 and Marchessault at 31. So Lausanne should be back. People to watch. Well, we've had a change. We have had a change. First in goals is now number 91, Steven Stamkos. Yay. So he's now at 15, Marchessault 14, Forsberg and O'Reilly 13. So going up the goal scoring here. That's great. The Preds definitely need to keep the goal scoring going. Forsberg is 1st in assists and 1st in points, 25 and 38. Marchessault is 2nd in points, 2nd in goals. Yossi's 2nd in assists. He dropped another in plus minus. He's at minus 20 now. Blankenberg is still tops in plus minus at 9. There's only four players above 0. Only 4 positive numbers. 4 for the Preds, and Wilsby's on IR. Hinostra, he plays, and then Gravel he's been sent back down. So Blankenberg, Wilsby, Hinostra, and Gravel, the 4 players that are positive, plus minus. We could have 4 players that are at 0. Jankowski, Delgaizo, Tomasino, who's not with the team anymore, right? And then Weisblatt, who is down in the AHL. Gosh, excuse me. Brain not working today. Right. So O'Reilly is 2nd in shooting percentage with 16.9, 17%, 13 goals on 73 shots, which is notable. Not exceptional, but notable. O'Reilly, 4th time on ice, so he's the most of any forward. Yossi 1st in time on ice at 25-15. So that is your Predators players to watch. I feel like I needed to do I needed to do some sort of a plug for somebody today. Yeah, your Nashville players to watch, brought to you by Piggy Enterprises. That's right, brought to you by Piggy Enterprises, a subsidiary of Piggy's World. When you bring the pig, you better have ice cream. Thank you, Piggy, for that. Okay, let's move into let's start talking numbers. That's got to be better, right? Than where we're at right now. Maybe not. Yeah, so the Preds are 10-8-3 at home, since December 12th, they're they're 5-1-1 at home, 3-5-0 on the road, 8-6-1 overall. But we're at home, so those are the stats we're looking at: 5-1-1 since December 12th. I started to talk about the stats of the previous game, and where in Chicago this is fun because they won 3 periods. You win 3 periods, you're going to win the game. Usually, you win 2 periods and you win the game. But proving again that. You can win 2 periods and still lose the game because all it took was Chicago to either win the shootout or the overtime, and they would have won 2 periods and lost the game. But they won 3 periods. They tied 1 and lost 1. And I'm looking at the numbers now, and it's just not interesting. You lose 2 periods, they're 0-6. Overall, during this period, they're 0-1 at home, 0-5 on the road. Just, not enough numbers. And then I went back and I looked at the season numbers, and again, it's just the numbers were just so bad before that it just kind of didn't matter, which is kind of how I felt about that part of the season. So, so we still you win 3 periods. They've done it 3 times. They're 3-0. They have not lost 3 periods or tied 3 periods yet this season, or at least not in that particular time frame. I guess I put you guys through my rambling on why I don't want to talk about it, which was almost worse than doing it. I think. And again, talking about things that matter, let's move to things that do matter. The first goal. The first goal, thankfully, the Preds got it last night because during this 15-game series, whoever gets the first goal wins the game. Except for one exception. So they're 8-0-1. Okay, they lost in overtime after getting the first goal. Okay, one game. 8 times they got the first goal and they won. And 6 times they did not get the first goal and they lost all 6 games. So at home, they're 5-0-1 with getting the first goal and 0-1-0, and that's just during this last 15 games since the 12th of December. So I think that's pretty stark. I like it. I'll like it better if they get the first goal against Minnesota and win the game. Definitely. Winning by period, looking at overall, the Preds right now seem to be struggling in the third period. That's what's happening right now. Overall, they're 5-7-3 in the third period. At home, 3-2-2, and the first period 6-0-1 at home, 2-2-3 in the second. Overall, 7-2-6 in the first. So their first period play has picked up. At the beginning of the season, they were really bad in the first. And the second period overall, 6-5-4. Pretty much 500. Pretty much 500 ball here. The correlations between winning the period and winning the game. So does it really matter? And the first period, they've won the first period 6 times at home, and they're 5-1. 0-1 when they tied it. And the second period at home, I really should have a number so I don't have to count. 247. 247. It should be 7. Yeah. So twice they have won the second period and they won the game. Twice they have lost the second period and they split that 1-1, lost one. And 3 times they tied the second period and they're 2-1 in that. Overall, they've won the second period 6 times and they're 5-1 when they win the sixth period. Win the second period. 1-4 when they lose the second period. 2-2 when they tie. So that's overall. The third period, 5-0. They are 5-0 when they win the third period. 1-6 when they lose it, and 2-1 when they tie. And that's overall. At home, 3-0 when they win, 1-1 when they lose, and 1-1 when they tie. So that's the correlation. So there's pretty good correlation between winning a period and winning the game. The first period 5-2, second period 5-1, third period 5-0. I guess that gets back to the winning, winning a period, losing a period. If they lose 2, they're 6-0 during this time period. Winning 2, they're 3-0. Winning 1, they're 2-3. Because I'm going to talk about it anyway. When they win 0, they're 0-4. So yeah, there's good correlations in there between winning periods and winning the games. So if you just win all 3 periods and you win the game, anyway, so that's what the correlation is there. So not only is it important to win to get the first goal, but it's really good to win the periods. I guess that makes sense. The winning goal. When is that winning goal being scored? Now, of course, the other night, it wound up being in a shootout. Given this might be a place where it's more interesting to go and look at the broader statistics than just this 15 game time period. But let's run through them right now, just for fun. 14% in the first and second periods, 29% in the third overtime, 14% in a shootout. That's at home overall. The Preds, 20%. They've won all 5. Oh, that's interesting. They've won 5 games in this last period, and every game the winning goal was scored in a different time period. So they've got 1 in the first, the second, the third, overtime, and now a shootout. That's fun. That is just too much fun. So during this time period, 47% of the time, the winning goal is being scored in the second period, 7 times. The next most is 3 in the third. So that's pretty significant. The Preds win 50% of the time. It's in the second period. And when the Preds lose, 43% of the time, the goal's scored in the second period. So that is looking pretty regular right there. Going back to the overall statistics for the season, overall, 36% of the time the winning goal is being scored in the second period. The next highest being the third at 25%. The Preds winning also 33% of the time. The second period, the opposition 38% of the time. And the second period evenly distributed between the third and overtime for the Preds losing. The Preds winning the second most is in the third period at 27%. At home, the At home, a little different. At home, the winning goal is being scored 29% of the time in the third period and 24% in the first, with 19% in the second. So that away is really where that's being, I guess, biased to such a high number, because 52% of the time it's being scored in the second period, with the next highest being the third period at 22. The Preds 80% of the time in the second period, and the opposition 44% of the time in the second period. So very, the second period is the winning goal period. It was not against Chicago last night, but it's for overall for the season. It's the second period. Last season, it was a little different. Overall, it was the second period, but the third period was pretty close, 37% to 33%. Again, the home team more likely to score the winning goal in the third period. No, the second period at home, the Preds 39%. When the Preds were away, 65% of the time. So the home team more likely to score the winning goal in the second period. The visiting team more likely to score it in the third. And those, I keep saying, I need to calculate that. I need to look at it from that standpoint, and I keep forgetting to do that. I think that would be really interesting, especially given the stats from last season, how to do that. Goal scoring. Let's move back to looking at the goal scoring since the 12th. And give me a second here. Get this updated. The Preds are outscoring their opponents 12-9 overall in the first, even in the second now, 15-15, and in the third, 16-20. So let's go back to this spreadsheet because we take out the empty net goals. Still being outscored by 5, 10-15, removing the empty nets. Overall, the Preds are scoring 2.6 goals to 2.7 for the opposition. With taking out the empty nets, it's 39-40. Leaving the empty nets in, it's all tied up at 45 as far as goals scored during this last 15-game period. Since the 12th, I just say the 12th, I'll get it right every time. So during this span, it's tied at 3 goals each. So when the Preds win, with the empty nets included, they're averaging 3.6 goals to the opponent's 1.4. When they lose, the opponents are scoring 4.9 goals to the Preds' 2.3. Definitely kind of a really big differential there. When the Preds win overall, 29 goals to 11 opposed. And then when they lose, 16-34. So that's pretty stark. At home, the Preds are outscoring overall, win or lose, 23 goals to 18, so 3.3 goals to 2.6 during this time period. When they win, in this period, the opposition hasn't scored in the first period. So during this time period, if the opposition scores in the first period, they've lost the game. Boy, now that's something, isn't it? That's just in this last 15 games, so it's not exactly rocket science. But it is, Goals win, goals lose, 6. Yeah, on the road, when the Preds win, there's no scoring in the first period. Wow. That's the kind of stuff that's freaky. Yeah, that's on the road. They're better off 0-0 at the end of the first. Who would have thunk it? Wild. Anyway, I got to go take a look at that. But we're not playing road games. We're at home. And so the Preds, when they win so far during this, since the 12th of December, the games they win, the opponents do not score in the first period. Now, they are tied 4-4 in the second, and the Preds have the advantage 6-5 in the third. 1-0 in overtime and shootouts now. And when they lose at home, 2 games, but they are outscoring the opponents 2-1 in the first period, being outscored 2-3 in the second, and 1-4 in the third. Again, just not a very high data set there. Overall, let's go back to that. When they lose, they're being outscored 6-9 in the first, 5-10 in the second, and 5-14 in the third. Again, taking out there's 5 empty nets there, so 5-9 in the third. They're being outscored. They average 2.3 goals when they lose, and the opponent's 4.1 when the Preds lose. So that's not ideal. Losing isn't ideal. So I guess if you're going to lose, what difference does it make by how many? I guess it matters to the goaltender because that's what his stats are all set up about. So anyway, last year overall, at the end of the season, it was all tied up in the second period, 86 goals each for the Preds and the opponents. The Preds did outscore their opponents in the first and third, though, and in overtime and shootouts. So that's last year. Special teams, I don't think there's anything remarkable from last night. Get a power play goal for Nashville last night, so they did have 1 special teams goal to Chicago's 0, which another indicator. The Preds are even with the opponent on special teams situations, goals. Then they've got a good chance. If they're winning, they've got a good chance of winning the game. So so the first goal on a power play in the first period, I love it. I want some more of it. So that's the story about the penalty kills, the special teams. No just after goals last night, so we won't go into that. So that's your Nashville Predators statistical summary, primarily of the last 15 games. So let's look at the matchups for tomorrow night. Minnesota's coming to town. Minnesota has won both games against Nashville this year. The first was a 2-3 overtime win and a 3-5 win. In both those games, Minnesota did get the first goal. Last year, they were 2-2. Nashville won the middle 2 games, which first was they alternate being in Nashville and then in Minnesota. So last year they played 4 games, alternating Nashville, Minnesota. So they won in Minnesota 3-2 and then won in Nashville 6-1. They did lose the first game in Nashville 1-6. And then the last game that they played in Minnesota, 3-4 in overtime. Also, in none of those games last year did Nashville get the first goal. So Minnesota has gotten the first goal in all the games this year and last year, although it did not matter. The Preds still managed to win 2 of those games. In the periods last year, Nashville was 4-4-5, so they won 4 periods, lost 4 periods, and tied 5. And then that seems pretty cool. And they were 2-2. This year, they're 1-3-3, so they've only won one period against Minnesota so far this year. So I think that's really going to change it. That number would not look very good. I kind of believe that things go to balance. Now it may not be one season that it goes to balance or 1 year, but I do believe that things kind of tend to go to balance. And so 1-3-3 looks out of balance to me. Tomorrow night playing 3 periods, 4-3-3. Now that looks balanced to me. I'd even take 3-3-4. Anyway, so that's just where they're at. Last season, most of Nashville's scoring was in the third period. They got 8 goals in the third period versus 3 in the first and 2 in the second against Minnesota. And then, my notes really need to make more sense. 3, 1 and 2, 2, 1 and 1 this year. Okay. So 3-2-0-0 this year. The Preds have scored 3 goals in the first period and 1 and 2 goals in the games, respectively. 2 in the second period, 1 goal in each of the 2 games, and then none in the third and none in overtime. This year, so primarily scoring in the first period against Minnesota this year, but to no avail as all 3 of those games were losses. One did go to overtime, but all losses. So I think tomorrow night will be a different deal. I don't feel like Minnesota is going to sweep Nashville this year. Can I say that? Well, I just did. Well, I could always delete it. And so looking at the 2 teams, on the power play, they're fairly close. Minnesota's 21st in the league to Nashville's 19th, 19.5 to 19.8. I guess primarily there the difference is the Preds have more opportunities and 3 more goals. So the Minnesota is 22 goals on 113 opportunities to Nashville's 25 on 126. It's fairly even on power play. No real advantage there. Penalty kill, though, they diverge. Minnesota is 29th in the league with a 70%, giving up 32 goals on 110 opportunities. So their power play is not the best, almost the worst. Only 3 teams worse on the penalty kill. The Preds have snuck back up to 5th at 83.1%, 22 goals against on 130 opportunities. So Preds are definitely getting more opportunities on the power play and penalty kill than Minnesota. So that was at 20, 30, 33 more opportunities in 40 games, so about 1 per game, close to it, 75% maybe. So their penalty kill, not so good. So if the Preds go, I think their power play's been better of late. That would be interesting. I'd have to look at the raw data. I could just look at the different games. Well, I guess I need to fix that. Anyway, I have to take a look at that. This other spreadsheet, they don't parse on a date range. This is new this season. Still figuring out what to do with this data. I just kind of have it. The special teams data with the penalties and goals scored and just after by term for I guess they call them continuation. That's what I hear. I think just after just kind of rolls off the tongue better than continuation, in my opinion. If there's a power play and you score a goal within a minute of the power play ending, I consider that to be just after. If you're shorthanded and you score a goal within a minute of having been shorthanded, I consider that to be just after. And even 4-on-4s, I track that kind of thing too. Which the Preds are pretty good 4-on-4. But anyway, so yeah, the power play about equal between Minnesota and Nashville, and the penalty kill an advantage to Nashville. I guess anyway. Goal scoring. Minnesota is 16th, so mid of the pack. It's kind of interesting given that they're 5th in the league that they're 16th in scoring. 23rd in giving up goals, so that's good. So I guess the thing is that they don't score a lot, they don't give up a lot. Nashville is now 32nd, last in the league in scoring at 108, 16th in giving up at 137. That's for the whole season, so it's a little that's maybe a little biased toward that really bad period. But in the first period, so where Minnesota scored most of their goals, and it's fairly even. They scored 39 in the first and 40 in the second. 50 in the third, but 11 of those are empty nets, so 39, 40, and 39. Very even scoring for them. Giving up goals, also fairly even. 35 in the first, 37 in the second, 51 in the third, 5 of those being empty nets, so 46. So more towards the third period, they are 11th in the league. As far as giving up the most goals, they're tied. Nashville also gives up 51, but they're listed at 9th. I guess there's no ties in those circumstances. Somehow they're breaking the tie. I don't know. I don't care. I didn't look into that. So both teams give up 51 goals in the third. The Preds are one of the best teams not giving up goals in the first period. They're 29th. And that is overall for the season. So that is a consistent theme that the opposition is having a hard time scoring in the first period, 29th in the league at 29 goals. And then in the second, they're 50 with his 9th in the league. So, so 9th in the league in second and third. So that's where things get a little dicey. Definitely the Preds are getting better. And the second and third periods definitely need to be better in the second period. So that's where the goal scoring is happening for these teams. The Preds were anemic as far as goal scoring, only scoring 38 goals in the third period, which puts them near the bottom. So they're near the bottom of the league in scoring in the second and third, near the top in the league and being scored against in the second and third. Really not what you want to see, but that's the overall stats for the season. That's definitely changed in the last since December 12th, 15 games. So which is significant, so that's where the goal scoring is happening. As far as team-to-team comparisons on NHL Edge, I'm getting less and less interested in looking at this. Minnesota, higher goals and shooting percentage. No kidding. Top shot speed's better. They have about the same skating distance. So I'm kind of thought I had an idea on the skating distance one way, and then it went another, and now I've just decided it doesn't matter. Nashville gets more shots on goal, shockingly, and has a higher top skating speed. As far as where Minnesota is scoring from, they are higher than average at the right point, but it's not a lot of goals scored from there. I think they're at 6 goals scored from the right point, so it's above average, but not anything significant. Another thing that's starting to look less and less meaningful is that here is yet another team that we're playing that has a lower percentage in offensive zone and neutral and more in defensive, and all of those are slightly below league average. I don't know who else is above league average. We're not playing them, or we played them before I started looking at this. The Preds are above league average in time in the offensive zone and neutral zone, and less in the defensive zone, and that's for the whole season. So I'm not exactly sure what to do. I think frankly that overall trend is. I might stop looking at that because, or at least stop talking about it, because when I say I'm going to stop talking about things, I seem to talk about them more. But I don't. I think that there's some really interesting data that's in there, but the overall here's this information I don't think is does not appear to be meaningful. I think if you get to the raw data and parse it out, that you could get something out of that. But right now, just looking at this from a team-to-team advantage, it's not looking very looking very useful, I guess. And is it useful that I just spent 5 minutes talking about it and about how bad it is? I don't know. Maybe not. I think that's probably the best thing I could do is just take this out of my notes and not do this anymore. I'd say my me time, you time. What do you think? All right. So those comparisons. Momentum. I did not. Winnipeg. We're not playing Winnipeg. Why is Winnipeg up here? Minnesota. And I did not update this, I can tell, because this looks like Chicago. Momentum. Minnesota has lost their last two at home to Edmonton and then on the road to Vegas. They did beat San Jose before that and then lost to Colorado and then had a 4-game winning streak. So that's 5-6. So there's 6-4 in their last 10 games. After they play Nashville, they go to Colorado, and then they get Utah, Calgary at home. Then they play Chicago, Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa. So it looks like they've got a generally easier part of their schedule coming up. The wins that they got started with Nashville. Then they beat Washington, Carolina, and St. Louis. So they have some quality wins there. Washington was a shootout. So definitely some quality wins. But they did lose their last two. They have lost 4 in a row, that being the longest losing streak for them. They have 2 in a row. They have done that 3 times this season. They have never lost 3 in a row this year. Hopefully this will be the first one. Well, I guess they lost 3 in a row and then they lost the 4th one when they lost to Vegas, Florida, Utah, and Winnipeg. The loss to Utah was weird, but it was a back-to-back situation with Utah and Winnipeg, so maybe they were looking past Utah at the time. Vegas and Florida, definitely tough teams. Nashville and Colorado. So they have not lost 3 in a row. How would you say that? They have not lost 3 in a row as a streak. They have not had a 3-loss streak, 3-game losing streak. They have not had a 3-game losing streak. They have a 4-game losing streak. And 3 2-game losing streaks. And then other than that, it's a single loss peppered through here. So this would be, the Colorado game is at 2 in the afternoon. I hate afternoon games. Why would you play on a Monday at 2? 2 o'clock on a Monday? A lot of, we get, here in Nashville, we get the afternoon games, but they're always on the weekend. But they're playing at 2 o'clock. Monday, they're playing at 2 o'clock. Maybe it's because of probably not to conflict with the college football playoff game. Maybe that's why. That's so weird. Maybe that was changed from before. Okay, so now I'm kind of off topic. But I think the Preds don't play Monday. They don't play again until Tuesday, right? So they play San Jose Tuesday, so that game's still got 7 o'clock. So Monday, wow. I wonder. I guess. Have to. Let's just take a quick look here. Monday's games. They got some late games. Got San Jose Boston is at 12. I guess it's 2 o'clock here. Well, no, it's 2 o'clock here. At Colorado, it's going to be 1 o'clock. 2, 3, 5, 6:30, 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30. So they've got games going through the evening. Pittsburgh at Los Angeles at 9:30. Yeah, so that's the time here. Weird. Okay. Yeah, afternoon games during the day. They're not doing that Tuesday. It's got to be because of either the inauguration, which I wouldn't think that would change it, but maybe the college football playoffs. So it's 2 o'clock is when they're playing. Anyway, so Minnesota has lost 2 in a row. They've had a bunch of players that are out. A lot of them are going to be coming back. So hopefully they're a little rusty. Nashville won. I did not update this either. Nashville did just win last night in a shootout. So they've won 2 in a row after losing 2 in a row, after winning 2 in a row, after losing 3 in a row, after winning 2 in a row. The Preds have had a 3-game winning streak once this year. It is the longest winning streak, and it was the winning streak after the 5-game losing streak, which unfortunately is not the longest losing streak that they've had. So a win with Minnesota would make this the longest tie for the longest winning streak, and then the win against San Jose would make it the longest of the season. And I would love to see that, and I'm hopeful. My attitude about if we were to lose to Minnesota, I would not think kindly of that. But they do have a little bit of a few games they can lose, but I'd rather not. So anyway, we'll worry about whether or not they lose to Minnesota if it happens. But anyway, so who are we going to see in goal? Minnesota, Philip Gustafsson, who's 18-9-3, about 2/3 of the starts, with Marc-Andre Fleury as the backup at 9-3-1. Last year, Gustafsson was in goal for the first 3 games, and the Preds won 2 of those. Fleury was in goal for the last game last year, and that was a Minnesota win. Gustafsson has been in goal for both of the games earlier this year, and Gustafsson did play in the last 2 games, so I would expect to see Fleury in goal versus Nashville. Good for him for being a backup. Marc-Andre Fleury, be in Hall of Fame one day. Backup. I expect to see Fleury in goal for the game against Nashville. Maybe we'll get to see both of them. So start Fleury, and then after Nashville scores 3 in the first. I thought they were going to be against Vegas. I thought they were going to be pulling the goaltender, but they didn't. So Fleury, and then as far as Nashville goes, Saros is 10-18-6, playing roughly 3 for Annonen's 2. Annonen is 4-2 with the Preds. Saros was in goal for all 4 versus Minnesota last year, so that was a 2-2. Annonen did face Minnesota when playing for Colorado last year. It was the 3rd meeting, and it was a 5-2 win. Colorado was 4-0 versus Minnesota last year. And so Annonen was in goal for Minnesota. Annonen was in goal versus Vegas. Saros was in goal versus Chicago. So I would expect they might be going more to a 2 games on, 1 game off for Saros. I think they could. I'd like to see that. But either way, Saros in goal versus Minnesota, I think is a good call. And then, seeing Annunen in goal at home here versus San Jose, maybe both San Jose goals. And then, but yeah, that's Annunen's getting a little bit more work with the team gelling a little bit better. Wedgwood was playing about 1 for every 6 of Saros, so wasn't playing very much, but the team was a little disoriented, so I think a little bit more stability in goal. Wedgwood was a little bit more, seemed to be a goaltender that was a little bit more out of goal, not as calm of a presence. And so I think Annunen and Saros seem to be, how they play in goals seem to be very calm, and I think that's working well for this team, at least right now. So so Saros in goal versus Minnesota, and then I think Tuesday probably Annunen. It's good to see him playing more because your backup does need playing time, or else they different backups are different. But I think it's good. Good to have your primary goaltender a little more rested. The mentality is they don't want to come out. So I can appreciate that. Jonathan Quick was that way. Didn't want to come out of goal. Wanted to play every game. They could have had 4 games back to back in consecutive days. I think he would have wanted to be in goal all 4 days. But that's why the coach gets to make those decisions. So anyway. So Saros in goal tomorrow night, and so that's your matchups. That's your goaltenders. Again, Minnesota coming to town tomorrow night. Look out for number 97, Kirill Kaprizov, and number 12, left wing Matt Boldy. Those are the 2 guys I think the primary people to worry about. After them, it's 23, Marco Rossi. So 97 and 12, roughly about 20% shooting percentage for the 2 of those. So that makes them dangerous, given that they're the top 2 shooters on the team. 12 and 97, that's who you should look out for. All right, well, thanks for listening. The Minnesota Wild coming to Nashville tomorrow night. I lost my mind again. Okay, hey, well, thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.